I have a serious weakness, and that is whenever I go into a bookshop, I have the need, the desire, the impulse to buy at least one book. Add on to the fact that my reading year in 2025 has been incredible, and I want to read everything, and I'm so excited about so many books. And so when I go into a bookshop and I see all those books that I'm so excited about, they just jump into my hands. And then they check themselves out, and then I go home and I end up with new books. Last Friday, Leon and I had a really exciting bookish appointment in Bath, and I'm not going to tell you what it was about yet. I think I'm going to film a whole separate video about it, but we went to Bath for a very specific bookish and exciting reason, and then naturally we found ourselves stumbling into the other bookshops that are in Bath, because Bath is our favorite city, one of our favorite cities in England. But from all the places I've been, Bath is just, it has such a special place in my heart. And we went to some bookshops and we got some things, and I filmed some footage that I thought it would be fun to share with you so you guys can come book shopping with me. And I'm so excited to tell you about the books that jumped into my hands. I didn't pick them up myself. I walked towards them and then they just immediately jumped into my hands. First, we had our appointment, and then after that, we found ourselves stumbling into the doors, the entryway of the beautiful Topping and Company. I love Topping. I love how they organize their shop. I think that it has such a wonderful atmosphere. I love the tables that they have curated, and I just feel like it's such a nice layout, so I always love going there. And I know that the Topping in Edinburgh is supposed to be amazing as well, so hopefully one day I will make it there. But yeah, it was just so much fun. We were looking through all of the books, and then I spotted two books that I couldn't believe. I couldn't believe that they were there. I couldn't believe that I found them. Before I show you the two very exciting books that I found at Topping, I have to tell you about one of my favorite books of 2025. I have been talking about it quite a lot in my recent videos, and that is The Snow Child by Eowyn Ivey. Eowyn Ivey is a fantastic author. She writes about Alaska because that's where she's from. All of her books are set in Alaska. It was her first debut novel. It was actually a finalist for the Pulitzer Prize. I fell in love with The Snow Child when I read it in the end of January into February. It has become an all-time favorite book, one of the best books I have read in my life, but also in 2025 so far, and I have just been fawning over her writing. And she just came out with a new book on, I think, February 4th, which happens to be my mom's birthday. I was leaving to come to England around that time, so I didn't end up getting the US edition, but I thought I'll just get it when I come home, because I didn't know if I wanted to read another one of her books immediately after reading The Snow Child. I wanted to give myself a bit of time. I don't want to read everything she's written or has written so far and then have nothing to look forward to because she just released this new book. Anyway, The Snow Child was her first book. Then she came out with another book, and then it's her newest book that I was just telling you about. So her second book after The Snow Child was The Bright Edge of the World by Eowyn Ivey. As you can see, it has this wonderful little tag on here that wraps around the whole book, and it says Topping and Company, signed first edition. When I saw that, I freaked out. But I freaked out even more when next to it, on the shelf, was this. This is her newest book, Blackwood's Blue Sky, and Topping and Company, signed first edition. What? So I had to get them. This one, obviously it's a first edition because it just came out, but this one, I forgot when this one came out. Let's see. The end papers are so beautiful, and look, it's signed by Eowyn Ivey. Oh my gosh, she is such an incredible writer, and I need to read I just need to read everything she's ever written, even her grocery lists, even her to-do lists. I want to read everything that she writes. It says copyright 2016. I don't want to know too much about it because I want to be pleasantly surprised. There's a little quote on the top of the blurb, so I think I'll just read that because I don't want to spoil myself too much. But it says, "These past weeks I studied the map and tried to picture them already traveling up the Wolverine River and into that empty, unmapped territory. I sped them along, ... I believe we're following a main character who is traveling along this river called the Wolverine River that is inspired by a river in Alaska, but I forgot the name of it. She said it in one of her interviews. But I believe we are just following him along this river as he is going on this exploratory journey. And what's great that I didn't realize was that there are a lot of photographs and illustrations throughout this book, as you can see. So I think that that's so exciting. As an illustrator myself, I love when books have illustrations and photographs, but especially when adult books have illustrations and photographs because not many do. So I am so excited to read this one and to have a first signed edition. Then we have Blackwood's Blue Sky, and this one is quite a bit shorter. I was surprised. This one is, I think, longer than The Snow Child, and this one is a bit shorter, so I was a little surprised about that. So many of you have told me that you've read it and loved it. A lot of you love Eowyn Ivy's writing as well. So like I said, this is her most recent release, and I don't want to know too much about it, especially because it's on the shorter side. I mean, it's really not that short. How many pages is this? About 300 pages. But I've heard that it's a bit more suspenseful, and I'm really excited by that. I will read maybe the first paragraph of the blurb because I don't want to be spoiled. It says, "Birdie's keeping it together. Of course she is. So she's a little hungover on her shifts and has to bring her daughter to the lodge where she waits tables. But it's a tough town to be a single mom, and Birdie just needs to get by." Ooh, intriguing. Oh, that's cool. It has these little trees on the edges of the pages, and then, oh, there's her signature. Oh my goodness. So those are the two books that I got from Topping. I still can't believe it, and I will treasure those books for the rest of my life. Then Leon and I stumbled our way accidentally into Waterstones. Oops. And I went there specifically for a certain book, a certain 3 books. I might have gotten 3 books, maybe, potentially, I don't know. Again, they jumped into my hands without me doing anything. Can you believe it? Anyway, so this is a result of another one of my favorite books of 2025, which is actually over there on my bedside table. I read in February My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante, and I fell in love with it so much, so much. If you want to hear me talk more about these books, they are in my last video, which is my February wrap-up, but I fell in love with My Brilliant Friend, and it's the first book in a quartet, so I needed the next three books in the series because they follow each other chronologically. So where the first book ends, the second book picks right up where the first book has ended. And the way that it ended, I needed the next book in my hands immediately. They jumped into my hands. I grabbed the next three books in this series. And I'm so excited. I am, as you can see, this is the second book in the series, The Story of a New Name, and I am nearly done with it, and I am infuriated. I am so angry at the characters. I want to throw this book out of the window, but I also want to hold it to my heart and treasure these characters because they feel so real. I don't know if it's because I'm reading this book so voraciously that I feel like I am truly in this world. So My Brilliant Friend, the whole series, the Neapolitan quartet, is set in Naples in Italy. I was saying this in my February wrap-up that my grandmother grew up on the outskirts of Naples, and my whole life it has been me begging her for stories and her telling me stories about her childhood and adulthood growing up in Naples. And my grandfather was also Italian, but he was born in America, but his parents were born in Italy. He went over to Italy and married her. They have a beautiful, beautiful love story, and I just loved hearing my grandmother's stories about her life in Italy. And then, so that's my mom's parents, and then my dad's parents are also from Italy. They moved to America when, at least my grandmother, when she was very, very young. I think she was maybe like 3 when she moved to America. I'm not sure about my dad's dad. I think he was from Bari, if I remember correctly. We have family from Naples, Sicily, Bari. Those are always the 3 that I remember distinctly. I think my sister did Ancestry, and we have a lot of just Mediterranean, what do you call it? You know what I mean. Anyway, so I grew up in a very Italian-American household, and so much of what's happening in these stories, the food that they eat, the cultural aspects of the story, the things that they describe, it reminds me so much of my grandmother's stories, but just of life being Italian. So that's why I have such a close connection to them, because they feel so real, and they're also just beautifully written. Elena Ferrante's writing is unbelievable, so captivating, so beautiful. You can see I've been dog-earing. I'm sorry if you are against dog-earing, but I'm not, clearly. My Brilliant Friend is about these 2 best friends and their very mesmerizing friendship. At times it's quite toxic, at times it's so pure, and it's about them growing up and their lives. And Elena Ferrante is a pseudonym. We actually don't know the real name of the writer who wrote these stories, which I think is so fascinating. But the main narrator her name is Elena Greco, and we are following her narrative as she tells us about her childhood and her best friend, and we're following them as young girls until I think the 4th book is going to be when they're maybe in their 60s or 70s. And so we are just getting this whole span of someone's life in these books, and I think that that's unbelievable, and I am eating every little bit of it up. Oh, it's a loud seagull. Yeah, I don't want to say too much about book 2, but we are following the girls when they are in their mid to late teens and early 20s. I'm loving it, but it's making me extremely frustrated, but in the best way, because I'm feeling so passionately about it, and that's all that I could ever want as a reader, is to just feel so passionately about a book because it feels so real and it's having such an effect on me. So that is the second book in the Neapolitan quartet. Then we have Those Who Leave and Those Who Stay is the 3rd book. And then the 4th book is The Story of the Lost Child. I also love these editions. They're from Europa, and how gorgeous. And I love how they look all stacked next to each other, but they're so beautiful. I love these so much. So I plan on binging the whole rest of the series, and then so many of you have been recommending the HBO miniseries. My mom's not a big reader, unfortunately, and my dad isn't either, my sister isn't. I'm just a black sheep in the family. But anyway, so my mom watched the miniseries and she said that it was so affecting, and she couldn't help but imagine her mom's life in that time period in Naples. And my grandma had a very different experience to what these girls are going through, but just the culture and the time period, my mom was really affected by the story, and I knew I wanted to read the books, so I didn't watch the show, but I'm planning on watching the entire show once I finish reading all 4 books. So all of you guys who are recommending the show to me, I will 100% watch it, but when I'm back in New York. I just want to tell you the book that Leon got, and he's actually currently reading A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway. This is my favorite Ernest Hemingway novel, and I have been wanting Leon to read this for so long. I gave him a whole 2025 TBR of books that I want him to read. He doesn't have to read through the whole list, but those are just books throughout his life that I would love for him to read, so we can talk about my favorite books that I think he'll also really love. And A Farewell to Arms is one of them. He said this really funny thing, I said this in my February wrap-up, that he wants to read all of the American classics in little mass market paperbacks because he feels like it's very American. The mass markets are just very American, and I fully agreed, and I knew exactly what he meant. He is reading it and he's really enjoying it right now. His favorite character is Rinaldi. If you have read this book, you know how amazing of a character Rinaldi is. He is the main character's friend. So this is inspired by Ernest Hemingway's own experience in World War I. So he was an ambulance driver in Italy in World War I, and he was wounded and sent to an American hospital, I believe in Milan, or at least in the book it's Milan. And we are following him as he meets a nurse, and it's just his experiences at this time being a soldier, and it's unbelievably brilliant. It's brilliant. It's heartbreaking at times. It's so funny. I just love it. So Leon and I are both reading books that are set in Italy, and we are both feeling so just like inspired. And he said to me last night, he's like, this is really making me want to go to Italy. And I was like, I know, me too. Me too. So I'm really happy that we're reading both of these books at the same time. Love this story. So glad that Leon's enjoying it. And so this is the one that he got in Waterstones. So that was our little trip to Bath, and then on Wednesday, today is Saturday right now, but on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, we went to visit our dear friend Evelyn, who works at Max Minerva's, and that is an independent bookshop here in Bristol, and she is the assistant manager there, and we have been meaning to visit her shop, and we finally did. It was so wonderful. I didn't film any footage there, unfortunately, because I was just so excited, and I took a few pictures, so I'll share those pictures here, but it was so wonderful to visit. We surprised Evelyn. She didn't know that we were going, and she is the biggest reason why I am reading and loving My Brilliant Friend, because in December we were chatting and we were talking about our favorite books, and I told her that 2 of my favorite books were Anna Karenina, or are Anna Karenina, and by Leo Tolstoy, and Never Let Me Go by Kazuo Ishiguro, and she told me that her favorite book was My Brilliant Friend by Elena Ferrante. So I bought the book when she said that because I'd been meaning to read it for years. I bought the UK edition that's on my nightstand, and I said, okay, I'm going to read it so that we can talk about it. So I've been texting her nonstop, especially with book 2, because the things that are happening that I'm so mad about, I'm like texting her in all caps. I'm like, this happened, how can this have happened? And then she's answering back, and it's just been such a fun exchange of freaking out over a book. So because I'm Italian, for years I've been saying I want to read more Italian literature, and I just haven't. And now finally, I'm such a big mood reader that I'm so in the mood for Italian literature that I really want to lean into that feeling and read a ton of Italian literature. So if you have any recommendations for Italian literature, please leave them in the comments, because I would love that. so much. So I bought 2 books at Max Minerva's, and the first one is by Natalia Ginsburg, and that is Family and... I wanted to look up how you pronounce this word. Oh gosh, let me do that really quickly. You'd think being Italian I would know. I mean, I have a guess, but I don't want to butcher it in case I'm wrong. Ready?
Borghesia.
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 Borghesia. Okay. Family and Borghesia by Natalia Ginsburg. And I have been seeing a lot of her books in the bookshops here because these are published by Daunt Books. Daunt is a wonderful independent bookshop in London, and they have their own press, which is amazing. They even commented on my picture on my post on Instagram because I tagged them when I showed this book, because I always like to credit where books are from, the publishers and the authors and everything. And they gave me this wonderful response, so I'll share that with you guys as well if you want some recommendations from Daunt. Also, a few other people gave wonderful recommendations in the comments as well, so if you are also looking for Italian lit recommendations, then that post has quite a few of them in the comments. But anyway, so I keep seeing Natalia Ginsburg's work a lot in the bookshops. I believe one, I forgot which one it is, maybe Family Lexicon, or... I don't remember. One of them has a little quote on the cover from Sally Rooney, which Sally Rooney is one of my favorite contemporary writers, so I really want to get my hands on that one. Max Minerva's just had this copy, so I picked up this one, and I believe it's 2 novellas, and because it's 2 novellas, I don't really want to know too much about them. There's a little blurb on the bottom that I don't think tells me too much about the books. Also, Evelyn gave me a Fitzcarraldo bookmark. In both novellas, underneath a subtle, stripped-down prose and a rich cast of characters, runs a stream of unhappiness and isolation, as Natalia Ginsburg explores the allure of memories and the complexity of family and relationships. Oh, that sounds so good. This is also translated by Beryl Stockman, and these are some of Natalia Ginsburg's other works over here. So those are the other books by Natalia Ginsburg, and I forgot to tell you who translated these. The Neapolitan Quartet is translated by Anne Goldstein. Anne, thank you. Thank you for giving me this story. Oh my goodness. The ultimate goal of mine is to be able to read it in Italian one day. An Italian viewer of mine was telling me that reading My Brilliant Friend in the Italian is so different and it adds so much to the story, because in the translation it says a lot like this person said this in dialect, this person said this in Italian, and when they speak in dialect it really shows that they're, I guess, lower class and from the neighborhood, as the characters say. And then you have the more wealthy people in Naples and in the story that speak in this very proper Italian. So the language itself plays a very big role in the storytelling and in establishing like the character's place in society, which I think is so fascinating. And I am learning Italian. Most of my family speaks English, and my grandmother, of course, is Italian, speaks Italian, but she mainly speaks English to us, except sometimes she says, well, quite a lot, she says these different phrases, but they are in the Neapolitan dialect, so it's not, I don't think, proper Italian. So I'm trying to learn Italian. It's a slow process, but one day I would love to be able to read My Brilliant Friend in Italian. And then the other book that I picked up was because of one of you, or a few of you, and it's a huge one, and it's beautiful. This is one of the most beautiful books, and that is Lies and Sorcery by Elsa Morante. So Elsa Morante was a fantastic writer that actually inspired Elena Ferrante. So someone told me in the comments that Elena Ferrante got her name from Elsa Morante, and it was kind of a nod to one of her favorite writers, her favorite Italian writers, and I think that's so fascinating. So this is a beautiful edition from Penguin Classics, and I just love absolutely love this cover. I love the colors as well, so beautiful. So Elsa Morante is a very well-known writer, and some of her works are translated into English, including this one, and when I saw that Max Minerva's had this edition, Evelyn said that they just got it in, so I snatched it. This one sounds absolutely incredible. Because it's so big, I don't mind reading the whole blurb, because I also just wanted to know what to expect. So it says, Elisa, orphaned as a child, raised by a fallen woman, fed by fairy tales, has lived an outlandish imaginary world for years. When her guardian dies, she feels compelled to confront her family's tortured and dramatic past, weaving the tale of her mother and grandmother through a history of intrigue, treachery, deception, and desire. But as her saga of 3 generations of Sicilian women proceeds, it becomes something else entirely, taking in a whole legacy of oppression and injustice. By turns flamboyant and intense, raging and funny, Lies and Sorcery is a celebration of the female imagination and the power of storytelling itself. Oh, amazing. And this one is translated by Jenny McPhee. That sounds unbelievable. And I love that aspect of storytelling being a really big part of this character's life. And another thing is, like I said, my family is from Naples, and also some of my family is from Sicily. And when my grandmother married my grandfather, they got married in Naples. And then when they went to visit his family in Sicily, she'd never been to Sicily before, she thought she was learning English because the Sicilian dialect was so different to the Neapolitan dialect. I always find that so fascinating. So I love that I'm able to read a story like My Brilliant Friend, which is set in Naples, and then be able to read a Sicilian story. So I think that that's really exciting. And yeah, this is just huge. But I can't wait. I want all of the Italian literature. Oh, this is fascinating. So it says, Elsa Morante was an Italian novelist, poet, and translator. She was born in 1912 in Rome and wrote her debut novel, Lies and Sorcery. So this is her debut. She wrote it while hiding in the countryside during the German occupation of Italy in the Second World War. Oh, wow. This novel earned her the lasting admiration of writers from Italo Calvino and Natalia Ginzburg to Elena Ferrante, and she died in 1985. Wow. Oh, that's fascinating. I cannot wait to read this. If any of you have read this, please let me know what you think of it. I am so incredibly excited. So, putting the biggest book on top. Those are all the books that I got while going to these different little bookshops recently, and my obsession with Eowyn Ivy and Italian literature. I hope that you enjoyed coming along book shopping with me and this book haul. I would love to know if you have read any of these books, what you think of them, and if you have bought any books yourself recently that you're excited about. I would love to hear. And yeah, thank you so much for being here and listening to all of my rambles. I hope that you had fun and you maybe got some recommendations. And yeah, so I will see you again very soon in another video. I hope you're having an absolutely wonderful day. And as always, happy reading.